What's good? It's Woog. Indie rock band Yo La Tengo is about to drop their 17th album, This Stupid World. And I just wanted to give a little context as we head into this new album release and kind of explain why or how they're slowly becoming one of my absolute favorite indie bands of the past 30 or so years. And here's the thing, they're not one of the biggest names in the indie game, even though everybody has at least seen the words Yo La Tengo, which actually translates to I've got it in Spanish. There's actually a story behind how the band got the name Yo La Tengo, but everybody has seen their name like on a Coachella flyer or some festival flyer, or I mean, they've been around since the mid to late 80s, so everybody's at least come across that phrase or that band name. But few have actually gone into the music, and they do have a cult following. But while you have other bands over the past 30 years, indie style bands that have reached higher heights, think Tame Impala, Pavement, Animal Collective, MGMT, and granted, these are varying types of indie. Some of it is more electronic, some of it is more psych rock, and so forth. But when it comes to album by album consistency, no, Yo La Tengo hasn't just all of a sudden hit like #1. They haven't hit the same heights as St. Vincent and become like a multi-Grammy Award winner type of band. But when you look at their discography and how good and how critically acclaimed their releases have been over not even the years, but literally the decades, you'll see that they have one of the strongest catalogs out of any indie rock band. And even just classifying them as indie rock, yes, it's a huge umbrella, but like if you look at their Wikipedia page, you'll see different subgenres mentioned like indie rock, noise pop, experimental rock, shoegazing. While all of these are true, even those names don't totally capture all the different things that this band does and has done over the years. You're missing ambient, you're missing instrumental, think like Tortoise or one of those types of kind of prog rock, krautrock, that's another one, krautrock type of bands that can have like an instrumental groove and just have it extend to 10 plus minutes, and you sometimes almost forget that it's even there, and other times it's totally hypnotic. Like look at the opening song to their latest actual album. They did drop an ambient album in 2020 called We Have Amnesia Sometimes. That was like a COVID release. But their album from 2018, There's a Riot Going On. Listen to the first track on there and you'll see what I mean by krautrock. By the way, you hear that title, There's a Riot Going On? That was a famous Sly and the Family Stone album title. That's another thing. They take really odd names of their songs, of their albums, and they're not exactly trolling, but they're definitely just doing little quirky things to kind of grab a little bit of attention here and there, even though, again, ironically, they don't get as much attention as some of the other great indie bands of our time. But I mentioned those subgenres, but you've also got to include twee pop. Twee pop is like a softer sung, almost more playful style of indie rock. Think Belle and Sebastian. I already mentioned ambient. I mentioned instrumental. So they do everything from the very soft, twee pop, and even ambient where the sound is barely there. And even on some of their non-ambient albums, they'll have certain tracks that just extend, like Big Day Coming. That one has both ambient moments where there's barely anything there, it's almost wallpaper music, to within the same song, Big Day Coming, you could have these loud, just a cacophony of sound, noise pop, and again, shoegazing, where you've got these droning sounding guitars that just kind of wash out and create like a wall of sound. And again, this is happening within the same song as those ambient moments. Another example of that is one of the best Yo La Tengo songs, Blue Line Swinger, which is on the Electr-O-Pura album. So yeah, they totally mix up their styles and songs. Sometimes they'll have an album that is, has a certain sound to it. Other times they'll have like a variety of sound within an album. But yeah, Yo La Tengo, it's a three-piece between Ira Kaplan, Georgia Hubley, and James McNew. Now, James McNew is the newest member of the group. He's been around since 1992. He's been in the band. That was around the time of their May I Sing With Me album. And then he was fully in the band by the time they got to 1993's Painful, which many look at as being like the turning point for the band. Like, they had their early stages, early career, where they were getting their lineup right, and they had like a guitarist named Dave Schramm. He was in the band for the first few years, but they had their first few albums, including Ride the Tiger and Fake Book. Then they had May I Sing With Me, which is the first one in their discography that I really like, but it's their next album, Painful, that again is kind of seen as being the turning point. And then they fully hit stride, where they get into some of their most critically acclaimed stuff, including their 1995 album, Electr-O-Pura. That's one of my favorite. It features the song Tom Courtney. It features a song, as I mentioned, Blue Line Swinger, which is, again, just an instrumental masterpiece. And then they get into their back-to-back albums that are kind of their most critically acclaimed and critically heralded albums. Those two are I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One. That's probably their most renowned and celebrated album. Not their most commercially successful or best chart performing album. Those would be 2013's Fade and 2009's Popular Songs. But I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One is kind of seen as being their Mona Lisa, their best album, just from front to back. And that one includes the song Autumn Sweater, which is one of the more popular songs, but it also has this instrumental called Green Arrow. And that is one of my favorite instrumentals by any artist. Like, it's ambient-ish, but it's also deeply melancholy. Like the way that they bend the guitar notes in this kind of slow burner, kind of nocturnal sounding song that has like crickets in the background. And then again, it has like this wonderful guitar work in it. And it's so different than other instrumental masterpieces of theirs, like Blue Line Swinger. Like, it's crazy to think that the same band did Blue Line Swinger and Green Arrow. Very different instrumentals, but both amazing pieces. But yeah, 97's I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One, recognized as the best Yo La Tengo album, followed by arguably their second best album, and then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out from 2000. That's the one with You Can Have It All. That's the one that has like the little, it's a twee pop sounding song. It's got like a little kind of ba 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 ba, just kind of going on in the background throughout the song. It's a really nice song, and that same album has some other gems on it. But even if you look at the albums after that, which again, that's like their sweet spot, their kind of apex, starting with Painful, and then you get into Electr-O-Pura, I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One, and then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out. Those four albums are kind of seen as their best. But even after that, if you look at Summer Sun from 2003, I Am Not Afraid of You and I Will Beat Your A from 2006. That's one of my favorite albums. And if you look at Summer Sun, that is one of their softer sounding albums, as was And Then Nothing Turned Itself Out. Those two are softer, but their very next album from 2006, I Am Not Afraid of You and I Will Beat Your A, that one is more like a noise pop album, where it creates more of those cacophonies of sound, and it's just a little bit noisier, a little bit more shoegaze. So again, they've got this ability to weave in and out of different sounds, from ambient to shoegaze to straight up indie pop, twee pop, jangle, C86. This is where you have those playful guitar earworms that just get lodged in your head. They have a lot of that stuff as well. So that jangle is different than the shoegaze. Shoegaze are those droning, just a wall of sounds of those reverb guitars with the feedback and all that. Whereas the jangle sound is where you're just kind of playing with these little melodies on the guitar. They can do both. And I really want to highlight how much this band has grown on me, because, you know, some of my favorite indie bands over the years have been Girls. That's the Christopher Owens band. Beautiful band. And he actually has some great work solo after his time with Girls. But Girls, Fleet Foxes, Tame Impala, I like My Morning Jacket, Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. I like a lot of these bands. So all of these different bands have had different moments. But it's almost hard to peg down when the best part of Yo La Tengo's career was, because I might have mentioned those couple of albums as being like the most heralded Yo La Tengo albums, but you'll have a lot of fans that prefer Electr-O-Pura. Like, I think that could be one of their top 2 or 3 albums. But even after that, their 2013 album Fade, they've got like a very almost ambient-ish gem called Ohm, O-H-M. They've got a very beautiful folky, even folky sound called I'll Be Around from that Fade album in 2013. So you could just close your eyes, point to any spot on the band's timeline, and you'll run into some absolute gems. They also have a beautiful slow burner from the 2009 album Popular Songs called The Fireside. That's another one of my Yo La Tengo highlights. But just to put it into context, like, you know how on Spotify you could like a song when you hear it or something? So if you look at all the different bands that I've liked different songs of as I listen to, because I listen to entire catalogs from a lot of these bands, right? So anybody from Sonic Youth to some of my favorites like Fleet Foxes and MGMT and you name it. Beach House is one of my favorite. And even if you take the classic bands like Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, and the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and you like as you listen, Yo La Tengo might have more liked songs than just about anybody I mentioned. I don't know about the Beatles. I'd have to double check. But, whereas Led Zeppelin, I might have actively liked like 40-something Led Zeppelin songs, or, 40 or 50-something Pink Floyd songs, or however many Beach House songs and so forth. With Yo La Tengo, I have actively liked 74 of their songs. So that just shows you how much they have slowly crept. And over the years, over the listens, over the several albums, again, This Stupid World is going to be their 17th album. Yo La Tengo has totally won me over. And again, yes, they are more of a cult following type band, and you're not going to see them headlining Coachella anytime soon. But their catalog is way more impressive and way more consistent than a lot of artists that might even be headlining some of these festivals and some of these bands that have more celebrated names throughout the years or even decades. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Yo La Tengo as we prep for this Stupid World album release, which is dropping now. I mean, this album is just coming out right now. So get into Yo La Tengo, dive into some of their catalogs, some of their albums, get into Fade, get into Electr-O-Pura, get into Painful. You will not be disappointed. If you like any of these subgenres of indie rock, from shoegaze to noise pop to even a little post-punk, like they have post-punk leanings, and again, experimental rock and just the instrumental side. Again, they've worked with that drummer from the band Tortoise. Like, he's produced one of their albums. By the way, they do a lot of covers too. They've got a few EPs that I didn't mention. They've worked on a few compilations. They've even done a couple film scores where they really kind of honed their instrumental chops. And they've worked with Daniel Johnston in the past. He made a feature on a song called like Speeding Motorcycle early in their discography. I think that was on the Fake Book album. But yeah, enjoy the sounds of Yo La Tengo. I can't wait to listen to this new album, This Stupid World. Look, they had that little ambient album in between in 2020. We all have amnesia sometimes. But their last proper album, There's a Riot Going On, I really like that one too. And that one actually contained the variety of sounds like within one album from Yo La Tengo. So if there's like a table of contents on the different sounds that they can pull off, There's a Riot Going On pretty much gives you at least a quick snapshot and a sample of all those different sounds. So, you can listen to their discography from beginning to end. That's what I like to do. Or you could even start at the end and work your way back. Again, there's a lot to go through. 16 albums to this point. But if I had to give one way of listening to the band and recommending it, I would start with 1993's Painful, move your way forward from their 6th album, Painful, go forward to now, and then go back. starting at Painful and then going to the stuff before that, including May I Sing With Me, which again, that's the first one that I really like. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Yo La Tengo if you've already given them a listen. Would you agree with me that they don't have the same reputation or celebrated name as some of the other indie bands of our time? And they are one of the quirkiest and just most interesting. If you listen to like how they got the name Yo La Tengo, or how they come up with some of their song titles, or some of the way that they just kind of spontaneously just kind of jam out, experiment with different stuff, and construct songs and instrumentals in that way. Very interesting band. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.